Bluff City Media presents Tigers Live with Francis Carlota. Join Francis after every Memphis Tiger game as he breaks down each matchup, player of the game, and upcoming games. Now, let's get to the show.
What's going on, everybody? Francis Carlotta here for Bluff City Media. Welcome to Tigers Live, presented by the Bluff City Collective. Another heartbreaker, y'all. Another heartbreaker. And Memphis goes down against Tulane, 79-81. Memphis had a chance at the end to pull it out, to get a much-needed victory after the loss against USF, but just wasn't meant to be, not meant to be. So another tough loss for Memphis Tigers, and I'm joined by Roman Cleary to talk all about that loss, to get his reaction on everything. Roman, what's good, man?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How about you?
Yeah, doing good, as good as I can. Never fun to see another Tigers heartbreaker like that. They had the chance at the end, like I said. Not a horrible look from David Jones, who was fantastic the whole day.
It was a pretty bad look. It was a pretty bad look. That was from Jupiter, man.
All things considered, I'm okay with that look. With how well David Jones was playing, I'm okay with it. But either way, doesn't go down. Roman, give me your thoughts on the game.
Well, I mean, it's obviously another disappointment, right? Another setback. And obviously it's not nearly as, disappointing in itself as the South Florida game, because, Tulane is a much more quality opponent. This is just going to be a quad 2 loss for the Tigers. But at the same time, you really felt like Memphis needed a win here after what happened in Memphis on Thursday. And unfortunately, it just didn't go, that way for him. And now the resume and the entire outlook of the season could look completely different. Now, again, it's just 2 games, but in college basketball, especially when you're in a league like the American Athletic Conference, your margin for error is just so small, so minuscule. And if you exceed it, like Memphis is on the path to doing right now, things could get ugly for sure. So Memphis, besides like Florida Atlantic and maybe another quad 2, I don't know if they can afford much more losses here in the AAC portion of their schedule.
Yeah, and I'm with you. That's the issue with that USF loss. Losing at Tulane in a vacuum isn't the end of the world. But then you couple that with a loss at home against USF, and now you're looking at a Tigers team that, might not be a top 25 team when rankings come out on Monday morning.
I bet they won't. I bet they won't.
Yeah.
If they are, it'll be 24th, 25th.
Yeah.
I mean, if this is in Memphis, it's probably a win for the Tigers, but lo and behold, it wasn't. Plus, it's just a missed opportunity, right? I mean, you still need to get quad 1 and quad 2 opportunities. And what do we say all the time? You get very few of those in the American Athletic Conference, and Memphis has struck out here with this one.
Yeah, this was a quad 2 opportunity, right, Roman? I think I'm correct about that.
Yeah, it was a quad 2 opportunity.
Yeah,
Tulane is 112, I believe, in the net. That's obviously going to go up with this win for them. But yeah, that would have been a quad 2 win for Memphis, which is brutal.
Yeah, it's brutal to not take advantage of that. I don't think we may have another quad 2. I know we have quad 1 games left on the schedule. Quad 2 games, they may, quad 1 might slip to a quad 2 game. Who knows?
Yeah,
but like you said,
both the FAU games are supposed to be quad 1 as of now because they're top 30 in the net. At North Texas, that should be quad 1. And at SMU should also be quad 1 right now.
Yeah. So any other thoughts on the game, Roman? I know, there's talk in the chat about Javon Quinterly. There's talks about JQ in the Discord as well. This was not his best game by any stretch of the imagination. What did you see from Javon? Do you have any issues with his indecisiveness as a scorer? Do you want him to be more aggressive? What are your thoughts on his play today?
I mean, I think Javon Quinterly's lack of aggression as a scorer is something that has been, commonly discussed a lot throughout the season. I mean, we've seen what JQ is capable of when he, decides to take over with the ball in his hands and, try to be more aggressive in getting buckets. I mean, and it's definitely appreciated, I'm sure by his teammates that he wants to be more of a playmaker. But at the same time, besides David Jones, he's probably the best scorer this team has. And when you are kind of limiting yourself in that aspect of things, I mean, that can land your team in trouble more often than not. But it was also just the turnovers today, and JQ has had problems with turnovers really throughout his entire collegiate career and throughout this season. But he had like what 5 or 6 today, and that's just quite significant. Let's see the official number. Yeah, 6 turnovers for Javon Quinterly, which is not good, and 11 points for a guy like him. That just isn't enough. I mean, 6 assists is great. That's appreciative. I mean, that's appreciated, but just not enough. You need more than 11 points out of Javon Quinterly if you're Memphis and you're expected to win more often than that.
Yeah. I see a comment from HHK talking about David Jones, how in crunch time he fails at defense. And, look, let's be a little fair. He did get the stop on Zion James to give Memphis even a chance at the end. So he did get that stop, but I get where you're coming from. I get where everyone's coming from about DJ and his defense. As I've talked about before, too often is he not locked in defensively. Too often is he trying to gamble too much, or is he trying to make a hero play on defense instead of just sticking to the plan, sticking to his man. The reason why Zion James was open for that corner 3 to give Tulane the lead was because he was trying to bait the pass and get a steal, and he just left his dude wide open. There are too many times where he's not fully there in the defensive side. When he is locked in, I do think he's a good defender, but it just doesn't happen enough. So, Roman, what are your thoughts on David Jones' game today? I mean, he was hot on offense, didn't hit the game winner, but what are your thoughts?
I mean, you can't complain about 32 points and 11 boards. That should be enough to win when your best player puts up those types of numbers. And, back to your point on David Jones's defense a second ago, I mean, I understand how fans can complain about the Tigers gambling so much on that side of the ball. But at the end of the day, this team does not have good perimeter defenders. It just doesn't. You have David Jones, who's all right. Jaquan Walton's probably the best one left now that Mills is out. I mean, this team doesn't have a Lester Quinones. It doesn't. I've said that before, but it does not have a Lester Quinones, and we need to stop acting like it does. And because of that, this team is really reliant on fast break offense, getting turnovers, and, forcing teams with their pressure and things of that nature. I mean, this team cannot just sit in a regular half-court defense and expect to be successful. You want to know how I know that, Francis? Because they've tried it multiple times over the past few games, and they've gotten burned. 101 points to UTSA, 81 points to Tulane today, 86 points in a blowout win over Wichita State. South Florida dropped 74 on them. I mean, this team is just not a very good defensive team. The only reason why their KenPom numbers and defensive efficiency are any good is because of the turnovers that they generate and the points they score off those turnovers. They are a good scoring defense. But when it comes to just on-ball, regular defensive pressure, this team just doesn't have the dudes required to, put that kind of game together. So, I mean, this team has to get turnovers or else it's going to fail, plain and simple.
Yeah, I'm starting to agree with you on that point. The perimeter defense of this team it's definitely not the best. You see Penny trying to figure out lineups to generate good perimeter defense. You see him do defense substitutions, bringing on Jalen Young at the end, subbing out JQ in hopes of trying to get some better on-ball defensive pressure. There's somebody on the bench that I think would be able to provide some of that defensive help. His name is Carl Sherifant.
But the problem with Carl is that he's too limited offensively. Same thing with Jalen Young. I mean, you'd like to play Jalen Young more often. You'd like to play Carl Sherifant more often. But those guys are just so limited offensively that you just can't trust them on, that end of the floor. As good as they are defensively, they are just as bad offensively right now. That's just the reality.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue with Young and Carl. They're just not good enough on offense. Defensively, they are probably some of the best perimeter defenders that Memphis has, but they're almost unplayable on the offensive side, which is the conundrum that Penny Hardaway has with this team and what he wants to get accomplished on the defensive side. Without Malcolm Dandridge's, I think he had 7 blocks, 8 blocks today, then I feel like Tulane would have just had
it was
maybe 90 points, 95 points.
Yep, 6 in the first half, 8 total.
Yeah. And, obviously it's good to see Malco get all those blocks. We'll talk about player of the game in just a moment. It's great to see him have those blocks, but also that means people are getting to the rim really easily. If Malcolm's going to have all those blocks, it's because no one's stopping dribble penetration to get downhill. And Malcolm has to clean up at the rim because he has no choice. If he doesn't have those 8 blocks, like I was saying, Tulane could have around 90-something points in this game if it weren't for Malcolm Danger's interior defense, because the perimeter defense is just not there. Is it just a matter of personnel to you, Roman? Do you think there's anything they could do as a scheme? You saw them try and go to a 2-3 zone. They would switch in 2-3, switch in man to man. Is it just personnel for you, or is it a scheme thing? What are your thoughts?
You're specifically talking defense there with that?
Defensively, yes.
Again, I think it just comes down to personnel. This team doesn't have the personnel to be a great defensive team. I mean, the 2022 team had much better defensive talent than this team had. The 2021 team that didn't even make the NCAA tournament still had much better defenders than this team had. So it's mostly personnel. I mean, they could be doing some, better things in terms of scheming and whatnot. I mean, I think their zone defenses are just terrible. Overall, I think they're better man-to-man than they are in zone. I mean, and so maybe if they ran more of that and tried to pressure more, perhaps they'd allow 70 points a game instead of 80. But, I mean, this team is just so limited in terms of its ceiling on that end of the floor. And also, Tulane's just a horrible matchup problem for Memphis. It has been for years. I mean, Tulane tore Memphis' zone up last year, and it did it again here today.
Yeah, 100%. Those are another really good point. I mean, Tulane from 3, they shot today. They were 10 of 24 from deep, 41.7%. I do think the main difference in the game overall were the free throws. Memphis from the free throw line today, they were 14 of 22. They made some free throws at the end to make that a more respectable percentage, but Tulane was 23 of 29. So that already right there is a 9-point difference just from the free throw line, and Tulane wins by 2 points. So I do think Memphis was in control of this basketball game, but little things, leaving people wide open, not switching on defense, and Malcolm getting his 4th foul at a really inopportune time, missing free throws throughout the game. Like, you can't do that and think to win a game on the road against a quality opponent. And that's what happened today. That's what happened today.
You think back to plays like, towards the end when Tulane took, I think it was like, a 77-75 lead. Memphis was up by 1, and they were defending an inbound from Tulane, and David Jones just gambled. Like, he tried to anticipate the pass, he double-teamed some other guy, and that left Sion James wide open in the corner for 3, and I don't think Tulane lost the lead again after that. It was just stuff like that ultimately killed Memphis. Of course, you got to look at the officiating a little bit. Definitely a pretty friendly whistle for Tulane overall, especially in the first half. I think it was 15 free throw attempts for Tulane at the end of half number 1 compared to just 4 for Memphis, which is pretty wild overall. You also had a few other officiating things like Malcolm Dandridge clearly being hooked by the left arm by, I think, Trey Williams, but he was instead called for an offensive foul, just things like that. Yeah. I mean, this game came down to a lot of things. I'm not going to point specifically towards the officiating as to why Memphis lost, because at the end of the day, Memphis still could have done things defensively, done things offensively even, to still walk out of this game with a win. I mean, I think Jaden Hardaway, as lovable and as inspiring as his story is, I mean, he's become kind of a burden for this team. He's unfortunately having maybe the worst season of his collegiate career. I mean, he was supposed to be a real shooter, and he was a real shooter for last year's team. He was maybe the best, most consistent, at least, 3-point shooter that the team had throughout the entire season in 2023. 2024, He's just been awful. I mean, Jaquan Walton goes out with, I think, the stomach bug that's been going around the team over the past few days. I mean, I read a little bit online that, for fans that are there at Tulane, that Walton was grabbing at his stomach after he went out in the second half. He didn't play in the second half at all, actually. So your best guess there is that he found himself getting infected with the stomach bug that's been going around the team over the past few days. So, I mean, just a lot of stuff going on. Jonathan Pierre didn't make the trip, because, he was sick as well. So, I mean, just a pretty unfortunate day overall for Memphis. And again, losing Tulane in a vacuum is not a bad thing. It's not.
Right. Tulane's
a quality basketball team. It's struggled. It has underperformed, but it's still a quality basketball team with, in my opinion, a top 2 coach in this league. I mean, Ron Hunter is incredible. Kevin Cross and Jalen Forbes are two of the most incredible players this league has. But when you couple that, like you said earlier, with the loss of South Florida, it's just not looking pretty for Memphis right now, and they got to get hot again, or else this may go south here.
Yeah, I was preaching this on Twitter, and after the USF loss, it's things like you said, things could really go bad fast. After that USF loss, it's already bad right now. It got worse losing at Tulane. Now they go at UAB. We'll talk about that later on in the show as well. But if the worst case scenario could be happening, where they start out hot and then they get to a rough patch where the chemistry issues are more serious than we think, then we definitely could have anticipated. I saw another comment in the chat here talking about, and let's see if I can find it. Another one by HHK talking about it's not always a good thing to have a super talented team. Everybody's used to being the man at their previous teams, and they don't know how to gel together. More ISO than team play. And that's something I've talked about at the start of the year as well, because this team has a bunch of bucket getters. This team has a bunch of hoopers who are quality scorers, but they're not great passers. They're not great playmakers. The only good passer really is Javon Quinterly, and that's really it. You don't really get playmaking from anybody else on the floor. You're not getting it from David Jones, and a lot of people were bothered. As great as DJ was scoring, a lot of people were upset with his lack of passing today. And I was too. But you also at some point, what do you expect? You're not going to expect David Jones to average like 6 assists a game. You'll be lucky to get 3 with David Jones. But either way, you don't get it from David Jones. You don't get it from Jaquan Walton. You don't get it from Dandridge, from Tomlin, from Jaden Hardaway. And the list goes on and on. The only good playmaker is Javon Quinterly, and that is becoming a problem. And that's why Caleb Mills was such an important player, because he was a guy who you could give him the ball and be a secondary playmaker next to JQ, and Caleb could also hit open shots when he's left open from a 3. He was a good perimeter defender, as you know, Roman. He was probably the best perimeter defender on the team before he got hurt.
For sure.
So now there are issues with this team that I think are coming to a head, and they're coming to a head at a really bad time. It's unfortunately a bad time for these issues to be shown. Do you have any thoughts on seeing? I mean, you touched on Jaden Hardaway. Do you think you just got to ride it out with Jaden, or do you just pull the plug with him and try and give Carl his minutes, or what would you do in handling that situation?
I would go with Ashton and Carl over Jaden right now, because Jaden's just not providing the offense that he's supposed to be providing, and he's a liability on defense. There's no reason he should be playing right now.
Yeah, I agree. I've been preaching to give Carl Jaden's minutes for weeks. I mean, for weeks. Anyone in the Discord, any y'all out there in the Bluff City Media Discord, y'all have seen me say it for a long time. There's no reason in my mind to have Jaden out there for that amount of time. I saw someone comment about
their hand was kind of forced today because of what happened with Walton, but
correct.
I mean, still, you still could have gone with somebody better than Jaden in that situation. You could have gone a bigger lineup with more Tomlin and Dandridge. You could have, Ashton and Carl. You could have gone with those guys a bit more as well. I mean, they were just better options in my opinion.
I agree. So I know you got to do your recap. So let's talk really quick. Let's get positive. Who's your player of the game for this afternoon?
I think you have to say David Jones, right? Because with a stat line of 32 and 11, it's quite an astronomical performance right there. Of course, you have to shout out Malcolm for getting 8 blocks. I mean, if he had been able to play the whole time, who knows? Maybe he gets 2 more blocks somehow and ends up with a triple-double in points or a double-double, I should say, in points and blocks. Yeah. So, I mean, because he got 3 blocks in the final 2 minutes of the first half. So maybe he gets 2 blocks in the final 2 minutes of the second half. You never know. But, I mean, obviously those guys for sure definitely need to get the shout out there. Of course, you got to point towards guys like Cross and Forbes and James for Tulane as well. I mean, those guys have been Tulane's core for such a long time. And it really, really sucks that Jalen Cook couldn't be here this year for Tulane. Because, I mean, I think if you insert him back into this team, you're looking at a real AAC contender and perhaps a team that can maybe sneak into the bubble for the NCAA tournament. But be as it may, Tulane is not. We'll see if they can get into the NIT this year. They certainly have the talent, but they need to get more wins if they are hoping to play any postseason ball, because they've taken too many bad losses at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you on that for sure. David Jones, yeah, he's definitely a great shout for player of the game. 32 points, 11 rebounds, 1 steal, 0 assists, as we know. The scorer, I'll give player of the game to Malcolm Dandridge personally. 13 points, 8 blocks, 1 steal, 1 assist.
All right, I think we've lost Francis here, so I think
When
while
he
we're doing
did,
that,
he could have had a triple double. He was incredible today, and it's such a good story. It's great to see him come back to the team and play as healthy as he's been. You know, knock on everything, knock on wood that he's been very healthy and in great shape. Played really well. I tweeted out that when Jordan Brown was announced that he's coming back, it was almost like Malcolm Dandridge took that personally, the MJ meme, because he's like, all right, you know what? I'm still the guy. I'm still the best center on this roster, and I'm going to show it. And he definitely showed it today. So shout out Malcolm Dandridge for being so dang good. But Roman, again, I know you got to get to your recap, so we'll get to a commercial break here in just a moment. Thank you for your time, Roman. Get to your recap, and we will definitely talk again soon.
Yeah, I'll see you next week after UAB.
Next week after UAB, yes, sir. All right, we'll go to a commercial break, and again, this is Tigers Live, presented by the Bluff City Collective. I'll see you on the other side of this commercial break.
Tiger Nation, I'm happy to help announce the launch of Bluff City Collective as the official collective of Memphis basketball. The Bluff City Collective was founded with the sole purpose of helping Memphis basketball continue its long and storied tradition of excellence. The Bluff City Collective will help ensure, as we move further into the new era of college athletics, that we continue to recruit with the best programs in the country. Basketball in Memphis is special. A huge part of what makes it so special is you, Tiger Nation. As a former player and now coach who was born and raised in this city, I know that better than anyone. Without your unwavering support, we would not be where we are today. That is why I'm asking all of you to join me in supporting the Bluff City Collective. The city's team needs you. I need you. Please go to bluffcitycollective.com to make a donation or become a member today. The time is now. We are not satisfied with just being good. We want to be great. Let's bring a national championship to Memphis. Go Tigers, go.
All right. And again, thank you to Bluff City Collective. Let me throw up this graphic about the rally at the Rendezvous, February 3rd, 3:30 to 6 p.m. Get your tickets at bluffcitycollective.com. It's a big meet and greet with pictures, autographs, question and answer with Tigers players and coaches. Your ticket to this event will also give you food and drink at the Rendezvous, world famous Rendezvous, downtown Memphis, Tennessee. Hopefully this team can get back on track, get back on the winning side of things. And regardless, this will be an awesome event, and I hope all of y'all get a chance to go get tickets, donate to the Bluff City Collective, and help out Memphis and its NIL. So now we are back from this commercial break. I'm about to join him, add him to the stage. A certain somebody who's really plugged in to the University of Memphis Tigers, who knows the program better than damn near anybody out there. Somebody who you all, I'm sure, know and have heard of, Hitman Hoops. Hitman, what's going on? Can you hear me?
What's up, man? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How you doing, man?
I'm good. A little shaken up after that loss, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. So give me your thoughts, man. We've talked. You heard a lot of discussions about the game, about Memphis's play. Again, you know the program, you know what's going on as well as anybody out there. Did you expect this type of performance? What were your thoughts on the game overall?
I mean, you saw the same problems that have been plaguing Memphis all season come back to bite them again. Just 3-point defense. I mean, I think it's one of the worst in the country. It's not so more of connectedness like the coaches like to point to in the conferences. From what I've seen on film, it's more so how they play defenses. They like to switch. Um, Players lose their man all the time on simple cuts. And so it's all about like denying passes. With a 5-out offense like Tulane, um, they're going to get to their spots and they're going to cut. It's a free flowing offense, so I mean they're going to get what they want. It's a lot about scheme, and they still don't understand like basic closeout. I mean, there's closeouts they have problems with. Uh, Help in the paint. I mean, you see them. I think it was 3 minutes left. They switched from a 1-3-1 to a to man in the middle of the shot clock. And as they switched to man, I mean, just simple communication skills that plagued them in the last play of the USF game as well. So
Right.
my overall thoughts is just the same problems that have been plaguing them all season just continue to haunt them.
And so I'll just straight up ask you, man, do you see light at the end of the tunnel defensively, or do you think these issues are just going to continue because of the personnel that this team has?
See, I agree with Roman on a lot of things. I don't think it's personnel, though. I think
Okay.
Memphis has I think they have a lot of good defenders. Quan's a really good perimeter defender. Tomlin's got athleticism, upside as a defender. Malcolm, 8 blocks a day. JQ, when he's locked in, although he's short and small, I mean, he's an average defender. And David Jones as well, that clutch block at the end on the last
Yeah.
possession for Tulane. I don't think it's personnel. I think it's just locking in at all times. It sounds so simple in coach speak to say that, but when you look on film, I mean, you've got players looking straight at the ball, and then their man, they move on the perimeter, and I mean that's how they're getting these open threes. They just have to lock in at all times on the defensive end. So, is there light at the end of the tunnel? I hope so, and I think there is. I would hope that the staff is going to make the necessary adjustments. I know people are going to be like, why haven't they made them already? They're either almost midway through the conference. Um, I, that's a tough question, but I think there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I think it's just because they have the personnel, they have good defenders. It's all about just buying into the system, and I think they will, and I think they'll figure it out when it matters most.
So it seems to me that it's more of a mentality thing, being locked
Yeah,
in
100%.
throughout the entire game, not letting not letting their man just slip right by them. Like you said, too much ball watching, not playing defense as a collective, as a whole, instead of a personnel thing. I tend to agree with you on that more so. Again, I understand where Roman's coming from. I understand when people say that it's a personnel thing, but I tend to think that it's just there's just not enough commitment, not enough commitment on the defensive side, and I think it's not a team thing. I do think it's like an individual thing, like David Jones, like we've been talking about, just so many times. He doesn't fight over screens, he doesn't close out properly, he loses his man, and then when he locks in, when he's fully committed, he's a really good defender. Like he did against Zion James in that block at the end. But there are just too many times he's not fully there and fully locked in. And you can say that about other dudes on the team as well. And it's just the unfortunate reality that we have to face for the Memphis Tigers so far. I do think that there's light at the end of the tunnel as well. You know, I am a positive person for my benefit or detriment sometimes. I am a positive person. So I do think there's light at the end of the tunnel, but it's definitely looking a little bit bleak for sure. Let's talk about the offensive side.
Can I add one last point on the defense real quick? I think it's similar to the rebounding rules as well. It's about buying in, and rebounding is like who wants it more. If anyone that's played at a high level, coached at a high level, they know that you can't really teach rebounding. Yes, there's a science to it behind it. Just you can measure or talk to Dennis Rodman talks about this a lot, but it's more than that. It's simple stuff. Just buying in, and if you want it more, I mean, you're going to get the rebound, and that's how it is defensively as well. Just buying in. They have the personnel. They have the high level defenders. It's just you have to buy in defensively, and we see that on offensively as well. I know we're going to segue into that in a second, but offensively, I mean, they go. I mean, they had they had 2 3+ minute scoring droughts today, and you just can't have that in games that are I mean, that's why all their games are down to the wire. They can't lock in for the full 40 minutes, offensively or defensively, and that plagued them again today. So
Yeah, I fully agree. Fully agree. And shout out to D'Angelo Halo as well. As we talked about before, guys who are used to getting buckets never learn how to defend. As a collective, it's not great. The defensive collective, it's not great. The effort's not there, and it just takes, at least for all we can do is just hope that the coaches figure it out and the players can actually lock in and understand what it's going to take to play defense at a high level against quality teams, regardless of the AAC. Like, forget the conference that we're in. These are still quality basketball teams that treat every game against Memphis like it's their Super Bowl. You're going to get the best shot from every team that we play from here on out, whether it be against North Texas, UAB, SMU again, whoever, Charlotte. There's quality teams, and they're all going to try and give Memphis their best shot, and Memphis just has to be more locked in and committed to giving that effort for the full 40 minutes. Shout out Daniel Greer. Talk a little shade. I see you, Daniel. I get it. He's got to keep his anonymity. He has to keep it. So it is what it is. But I appreciate you, Hitman, for coming on and talking Tigers basketball with me. Let's talk about the offensive side as well, because a lot of talk before after the USF game was, what's the plan against the zone defense? What are they going to do? You're going to face zone for basically every game for the rest of the season. What are they going to do? What did you see from the offense today that gave you a little bit of hope, or that showed you that they still have issues to work on?
Well, I liked how they adjusted their scheme against Tulane's size. Tulane didn't have any size down low. I think their biggest guy was Kevin Cross, 6'7". So I liked how Malcolm had a day. They fed him a lot, especially when down the stretch when they're struggling to shoot and move the ball. I mean, they fed him. They looked towards him. Entry passes were pretty on point for the most part today. It's just scoring droughts. And when you're in a scoring drought and you're not getting the looks that you want, you have to have someone that you can rely on. And today, that was Malcolm. He had a clear size advantage down low. They fed him well. So I think if they continue to take advantage of mismatches in the upcoming conference games, and not just size, but sometimes you'll have bigger guards on Quinterly. You can ISO him, clear outsides. It's just I liked how they kind of adapted their offensive scheme to Tulane today, and I think you'll continue to see them do that throughout the conference. They have in the past. Their offense has really never been an issue. It's the only thing that's been an issue for their offense is maybe occasionally missed free throws, and then just the scoring droughts, as I mentioned. So they can find a way to, it sounds simple, but not go on these scoring droughts. You're not going to see them struggle. And I think it's mostly because they're not locking in. It's simple things. There are multiple times a day where they made the right cuts, but the pass was just off by a second or two.
Pass was late.
It was behind them. Yeah, exactly. They're doing the right things. And that's why I think there's hope offensively. They're doing the right things. It's just everything's not clicking yet for them. And it sucks to say that, but it's not. So,
yeah, and I think that also goes to what I mentioned before with the lack of playmakers on this team. The only playmaker is Javon Quinterly, the only good playmaker. You go down the roster, it's just not littered of playmakers and guys who can see the floor very well and make those tough passes in between defenders, find cutters. That is a real issue for this roster with Caleb Mills out. They need to find other ways to make plays for each other, other than just having it be Javon Quinterly. So I think that part of that issue is definitely due to that problem. But also, to your point earlier as well, I agree with the adjustments they made against the zone. I think they did a good job of flashing Malcolm Dandridge across the face of a zone, having him go middle. They found him a couple times. They'd set a ball screen, swing. Dandridge would cut right to the middle of the zone. They'd find Dandridge, and he got some good buckets, good looks, went to the foul line from that action by itself. Dandridge made himself available in post-ups and they found ways to get him the ball in mismatched scenarios. I think they were actually decent against the zone today. So, the bigger issues from my perspective would be on the defensive side and the lack of free throw shooting. I mentioned it on Twitter, like I harped on it a lot, that Tulane, they won the game because they were way better from the free throw line. They made 9 more free throws than us today. And when you lose a game by 2 and you lose the free throw line battle by 9, that's heartbreak. That's tough, man. Like that's a tough way to lose a basketball game. But those are obviously, what can you do? You obviously want to make your free throws, but shoot, man, like that's just that's sometimes how basketball goes. So moving forward, what type of adjustments are you looking to see from the Tigers? Besides effort, I know obviously we want them to lock in. Is there anything specific that you're looking for moving forward?
Yeah. I hope the staff is listening to this, but they need to have. So Jourdain and Tomlin, they're good elbow shooters. I mean, they've got a midi they can hit. I mean, you saw Tomlin today with a fadeaway.
Yeah, nice.
Off the dribble too. Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got elbow shooters. So when a team attacks them with a zone defensively, they need to find that for Jourdain or Tomlin at the elbow, and then you need a seal off down low from Malcolm. What that does, that opens up the inside, and then the defense is probably going to counter that by doubling that elbow, and then now you've got shooters around you. So it hurt not having Quan in there in that whole second half, but that's what they need to do. Like from a basketball standpoint, that's what they need to do. Then mentality wise, just lock in, as I mentioned before. But yeah, having that 4 at the elbow, that opens up. You have a mid range game from Jourdain and Tomlin. You have that high low from the seal off from Malcolm, and then you also have. It opens up the perimeter for your catch and shoot shooters like Quan and JQ, David Jones, or whatever. And then when you're at the end of the shot clock, obviously, you can clear out for David Jones and let him do what you want. But I mean, obviously, you don't want to get into the end of shot clock situations because that's likely when you're not going to have a good quality shot. So, I mean, that's specifically what they need to do, and I hope the staff is listening to that. So,
hey, man, I hope so too.
I'll have to send it to a few people. Hopefully, we see that in the next game. So,
yeah, hey, I hope so too. And y'all heard it here first. In Memphis at UAB next week. You see that adjustment made. Well, you know where it came from. But no, I think that's an awesome point. Jourdain and Tomlin are good enough in the mid range to get those looks up, and David Jones is also good in the mid range as well. I want a little bit more creativity against the zone, and I think they flashed that creativity today. Like I said, I don't think they were that bad on the offensive side. They didn't make their free throws like that. I think they could have scored around 88 points today if they just hit their free throws. And what do you think about transition to something else? How do you feel about the addition of Jordan Brown coming back to the program? What do you think he'll add? Do you think he's going to get run soon? He didn't play today, and it was a big ruckus about him even flying with the team, being back on the squad with the team in Tulane. What do you foresee to be his role moving forward?
That's tough. I see both sides of the coin. Just knowing everything that went on behind the scenes with Jordan Brown, I see both sides of it. Just from the staff standpoint, I mean, you've got Tomlin, his foul issues. Malcolm fouled out today, but Tomlin's had foul issues in the previous conference games. I mean, that leaves you with two playable bigs, I should say, because I don't think Pierre is a playable big right now. No. You've got two playable bigs in Malcolm and Jourdain. And, Malcolm has an injury history. So what happens when he goes down? You have one big in Jourdain. And you just can't have that from a staff. And that's why the staff never pushed out Jordan Brown. It was Jordan Brown. It was his option in leaving. And, he left in a very nasty way. Blindsided the staff, blindsided the players. And from the players' point of view, it looked like he quit on them. And, I mean, that's where I understand the player side of it as well. I mean, your player just quit on you mid-season after he got, I think, 7 minutes of playing time in that Ole Miss game. Just got up and left, moved out of his apartment, moved everything back to Cali, and, didn't tell a soul. And it was rough for the players, rough for the staff. They didn't really have an idea of what's going on. A lot of what they knew was through social media, but it was a horrible situation, horrible way to leave, and the fact that they welcomed him back, it doesn't sit right with me. I don't agree with it, but
Mm.
I would take the side of the players in this. Again, I mean, there are disagreements among the players on bringing him back, but from a basketball standpoint, having Jordan Brown back in the fold 100% makes his team a better team. Just disregard how he played earlier in the season. I think that more people would be on board if they disregarded that. But again, I mean, some people don't even agree with my basketball standpoint that him being on the team makes them a better team just because of the way he played earlier in the season. But
Right.
I take the side it doesn't sit right with me, him being welcomed back on the team and him flying with the team today, being there. The locker room, Penny already mentioned in the presser after the USF that he essentially almost lost the locker room and that they've been having chemistry issues in the locker room, on the court, and then now you adding a player back into the fold that not everyone agrees that he should be there in the first place. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't sit right with me. And you're just asking for trouble in that locker room. So in years past, there have been locker room issues. Nolly, Tyler Harris, there's been a multitude of locker room issues in the past. And then going into the season, I mean, I had my high hopes of Memphis finally not having off court drama, and then the Mikey JJ Taylor situation. I got the Jordan Brown situation, him being added back into the fold. You're just asking for problems, and when you're having the problem of players locking in, and then you're adding intentionally off court drama into the locker room, it doesn't make sense. I typically have staff's back on everything they do. It doesn't sit right with me that he's back on the team. So I root for both players. I just don't think it's the best decision for both parties at this time.
Those 100% fair comments. I mean, I'm sure the way you feel is the way a lot of people feel. That doesn't sit right that he's back. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
It does not make me feel. It doesn't make me feel good that he's back on this team after all that happened. And shout out to D'Angelo Halo again, saying this team already had bad internal locker room problems. Now Brown's coming back, and let's just talk about it a little bit, Hitman. Those locker room issues, chemistry issues, from your perspective, how big of a concern should they be for us as people who cover the team, who watch the team? Should they be legitimate concerns from your perspective?
I think that the media is going to overemphasize it. They like to take things and run with it. The newspaper publications out there in Memphis, specifically, they take things and run with it. It doesn't sit right with the players and staff when they're on social media and seeing that stuff. So I think it's a legitimate issue at this time. I just think most of that stuff needs to stay in the locker room, if that makes sense. I don't think that it should be getting out there. And again, I mean, that's on Penny for even putting it out there in the first place. I think his back was against the wall kind of in that presser after the USF loss. He probably said some things that he regretted saying, but I think if you're in any college program, and you know what's going on there, every college team deals with these kind of issues. So I think they're being over scrutinized at Memphis a little bit. Again, I know multiple programs across the country dealing with similar locker room issues, and it's just how it is in any locker room in sports in a competitive environment when guys are coming in, formerly being the man at their schools, as you guys mentioned on this show multiple times. They're coming in, they're used to playing on ball, and then now they have to kind of adopt a more off ball role, learn how to play, and then their new system, cut, set screens, all this stuff that they weren't really doing at their old schools. They have to learn and adopt to that, and they have to be okay with a new player being that alpha. That's kind of the root of these chemistry issues. It's nothing major. I would say probably like half the programs in the country deal with some sort of these issues across the season. I just don't think, I think the media is going to over scrutinize it and kind of over exaggerate these issues. So I think they're legit, but I think it's a common issue across the country. So
Fair enough. It is likely a common issue across the country, especially in this day and age of the transfer portal and roster turnover. I mean, these issues probably exist damn near everywhere because of how easy it is for players to leave, players to come join, and the continuity. It's just so hard to build that team chemistry, that team bond. It's so hard to build when you're changing multiple guys in every offseason. It's tough. It's a definitely a hard thing to do and keep that chemistry up when there's so much change in rosters. So do you think that these roster issues in terms of chemistry are fixable? Do you think that, you heard on the broadcast about them coming together and Quinterly trying to get them together and figure something out? Do you think that, again, in this context as well, do you think there's light at the end of the tunnel for the chemistry issues?
100%. I mean, these are issues that happen across probably half. I don't want to say most. I don't want to categorize everyone into one, but I'd say probably half the programs, D1 programs in the country. I mean, these are issues that just stem from players still trying to adapt to their roles. Again, ego and selfishness is standing in the way of that, and that's why they haven't fully adapted to that. But I do think there's light in the tunnel. I think if they kind of see a common goal, and that common goal is winning and succeeding and going far in the tournament. I think if they kind of rally around that, I think that they'll get past these issues. But whether you like it or not, players are on social media. They see what people are saying. And yeah, it's so easy to say, like, ignore that. It shouldn't affect them. But stuff like that does affect them. So, that's why I say it should stay in the locker room, most of this stuff, or stay away from the player's vantage point. But I think just the media covering it in general is going to affect the players. And it sucks, but that's the way it is. And I do think that it's fixable, though. I do think that's fixable, and I think that it'll get resolved next game. But you'll see a completely different team next game. Penny's going to get to these guys in practice, and you may ask, why didn't he do that after the USF game? Well, he did. It's just you see the same problems that you do defensively that you did in the USF game. You have to get past the chemistry issues first before you can start fixing the basketball issues. So it hurts losing that on-the-court presence of Mills as well. That's a huge blow to this team. And not having those veteran guys on the court to kind of help lock these guys in at times. You wouldn't see Memphis going on these scoring droughts in this point of the season with Mills on the court, 100%. So it's a combination of, losing guys, again, these chemistry issues, and then just the team not locking in. But I do think that there's light at the end of the tunnel for all these issues that we mentioned today. And it's easy to be negative after a loss, but
of course,
I'm not even that down about this loss. It's a quad 2 loss. It's a game that, yes, Memphis should have won, but again, Walton didn't play the whole second half. Having a guy in there that he was 3 for 4 from 3 today, made 3 early threes. That's a guy that opens up your offense. They just didn't have them, and they had to throw in Jaden Hardaway. And Jaden Hardaway's, I like him, but he should not get 28, 30 minutes a game. And when you're playing him 28, 30 minutes a game and on the road at Tulane, a team you haven't beaten the regular season since I don't know when, but you didn't beat them last year in the regular season, and you expect to win that game, it's not going to happen. So I saw some comments on Twitter about Penny's play that he drew up at the end for David Jones's 3, saying that they should have got something going to the rim. But again, that's a great look. Top of the 3 key for a guy that was 5 for 10 from 3 going into that shot, wide open. That's a good shot. It's a good play design, and it just didn't go down. So
I agree. I said it at the top. Me and Roman went back and forth a little bit. He thought it was a bad look. I thought it was a good look. It's a wide open shot for a guy who was on an absolute heater, as David Jones is normally on as a scorer. And he was feeling himself after getting a big stop. I'm sure he had a good look to quiet that crowd. I mean, imagine if he made that three to win the game. I mean, man, like he would have been animated, that to say the very least, against that Tulane crowd. But I thought it was a good look. It didn't fall. It happened. It is what it is. It's basketball. But yeah, so Hitman, thank you so much, man, for your time. It really means a lot for you to come on the show. And because I know for people wondering, like, why is he not showing his face? He likes to keep his identity private. That's his thing. So, respect that. That's all I ask. Respect the man. Respect his privacy. That's all
I gotta
I
move,
ask.
man. That's how I move. In order
Exactly.
in order to get the things that I know, like, I mean, I've got to move like this. So I don't want to put in jeopardy my sources or myself or the people around me. So I gotta move like this. So
Absolutely. Like I said, 100%. Absolutely. Again, as I said, just respect the man's privacy. That's it. But Hitman, again, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to go to a quick commercial break. And once you come back, let's look ahead. I'll talk about what I'm looking for against the UAB. Then we'll close out the show. Thanks, Hitman. Appreciate you.
I got you, man. Thank you.
Not just the level of individual talent that he plays, but it's also the level of his mind. We haven't gotten cross-court open shot this year. Right. We haven't seen that pass a lot. Number one, you got to respect him going to the basket. There's a roller. I got to watch the roller. He has the mind to be able to say, I see all of that, but now I see this guy over here. I'm going to get him this open shot. How shifty he is to always be going forward. It's usually side to side.
Yeah.
His dribble moves are side to side, but going forward.
Right.
Which is very hard to defend. I just want to get you, as many times can I get you to do this? But for him, it's not here. It is here, which is are his moves to get down the floor. It's awkward for a defender to try to catch a cadence. You dribble. So now what I do is when you go put that ball down, I'm going for it. But with him, it's hard for my cadence. But what's my cadence for you? I don't know what it is.
Tune in to the Anthony Sane Show Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Who do you need to step it up? Outside of David Jones, I think David Jones is David Jones.
I don't think you need him to step it up because he's been performing.
Yeah, he's David Jones. Outside of him, he's fine.
I think Quinterly needs to play better.
In what way? He's facilitating the ball well. I mean, what do you, I don't.
2 at 12 from the field's not cutting it.
It's not great. It's not great.
And I don't need a runner 3 from the top of the key with 3.5 seconds left.
Is Virginia the game where Jordan Brown is going to cook? Those dudes aren't looking to run the ball.
Cook what? Dude, I thought he was going to have a freaking night. He came out with that fresh cut, lined up. And then literally within the first 15 seconds, missed a wide open layup. And then picked up 2 fouls right away.
I feel real lied to because I thought we were getting a 20 and 10 guy.
Didn't think it did anything for you.
Well, I think
we all thought we were getting a 20 and 10 guy. And we are getting that in David Jones.
I'm not even getting 20 or 10 minutes out of the guy.
Tune in to Tigers Untapped with TJ Willis and Trey Lasley every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
All right. Give me 1 sec. Cool. So, yeah, let's look ahead briefly. They have UAB just next weekend. It'll be a quad 3 game. And actually, I might be wrong. I think I might be wrong. It's a quad 3 or quad 4 game. Apologies for not knowing. But it's another game in a hostile environment. We all know about the history of Memphis versus UAB. I mean, those days and the Calipari days and those hostile games, them throwing popcorn and drinks and everything on our players, like it was crazy. It's one of those memories that I'll just never forget. But this rivalry, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun to rekindle this rivalry. Go at UAB. I'm definitely looking to see them get at least more than 13 assists in that game. They averaged 13.4. They had 12 today. I've talked about the issues with playmaking and the lack of playmaking personnel on this roster. It's going to be hard for Memphis to bump up that assist average. You know, you've heard Penny Hardaway say a lot that he wants to get to 20 assists per game. Sorry, Penny. Sorry, man. That's not happening. Y'all are not going to get to 20 assists per game. But what I hope that they can do is get to around 15, 16 assists per game. And if they can, I think it's a massive step forward and will show that they're really trying to lock in and commit on the offensive side. Similarly, limit those turnovers as well. They had 14 turnovers today. And then also what's worse, the turnovers seem to come at such bad times for Memphis as well against Tulane this afternoon. So I really want to see them limit their turnovers as well. So that's what I'm really looking for when they play UAB next weekend. But again, to everybody, thank you so much for being a part of the show. Shout out to the Bluff City Collective again once more for presenting the show as well. And again, I'll throw up this graphic for the event that they got going on. Give me 1 second. I see it. Here it is. So the rally at the Rendezvous, February 3rd, 3:30 to 6 p.m. at the Rendezvous. Get your tickets at bluffcitycollective.com. Meet and greet with pictures, autographs, question and answer with Tigers players and coaches. The ticket includes drink and food as well at the Rendezvous. So go get your tickets, show your support to the program, donate to the Bluff City Collective and Memphis's NIL. And I hope everyone has a great time at that event. And hopefully by that time, Memphis will be coming off of a nice win against UAB and can slowly start to right the ship. But again, thank you to everybody, to everyone in the comments. Shout out to y'all for being so active and supportive of everything. And I'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Tigers Live. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. For comprehensive coverage of all things Memphis sports, head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co and find out how you can become an insider. We will see you back here next time.